Everybody just woke up today thinking it was going to be a normal scroll-through kind of day, until something very unusual started happening around Maurice Sam, and at first it looked like one of those random fan moments, but the more people paid attention the more it started to feel like something deeper was going on, because clips started resurfacing, scenes started getting reposted, and suddenly people were no longer just watching, they were studying him closely, and what they noticed today is what is now shaking conversations across different platforms. Cold astonished at first, it began with a simple observation that didn't look like a big deal, because someone pointed out how his expressions in certain scenes felt too real to be just acting, and you know how fans can be, they pick one small thing and turn it into a full discussion, but this one refused to stay small, because more people went back to rewatch his scenes, and that's when the pattern became impossible to ignore. Flushed face. What people are noticing now is that Maurice Sam has quietly built a style that doesn't rely on shouting or overacting or trying too hard to impress, because instead of doing too much he does less, and somehow that less is what is hitting harder than everything else, and fans are now asking themselves, how did we not see this earlier? Because it's been there all along. Loudly crying face, the way he uses silence, is what is confusing people the most right now, because normally in emotional scenes, actors raise their voices or exaggerate their reactions, but Maurice does the opposite. He pauses, he looks, he breathes, and in that moment it feels like he is saying more without even speaking, and viewers today are calling it dangerous acting, because of how deeply it pulls you in without warning. Cold face. And it didn't stop there, because people began comparing his older roles to his recent ones, and what they found is that this isn't something new, it's something that has been growing slowly over time, like he has been perfecting this intense energy that doesn't scream for attention, but somehow ends up becoming the only thing you can focus on. Some fans even started pointing out how in certain scenes his co-actors look like they are reacting to him for real, not just acting along with him. And that observation alone has opened another conversation, because now people are wondering if his presence on set is actually influencing the entire mood of a scene without people realizing it. Flushed face. Another thing that people just noticed today is how he controls his eye contact, because this is something many viewers admit they never paid attention to before, but now that they've seen it they can't unsee it, because there are moments where he doesn't even say anything, he just looks at someone, and the tension in that single look is enough to carry the whole scene. Loudly crying face. What makes it even more interesting is that this discovery didn't come from a new movie or a major release, it came from fans revisiting his old clips, which makes it feel even more real, because nothing was staged for today. This is just people finally seeing what has always been their cold face. And of course, once the conversation started, it spread fast, because different clips began trending at the same time, and everyone had their own example of that one moment where they felt something shift. And it's crazy, because even people who were not originally fans are now joining the conversation, saying they finally understand what the hype is about. Astonished face. Theirs also this growing opinion that Maurice Sam doesn't act for the camera the way most actors do, because instead of performing outwardly, he seems to act inwardly, like he is actually feeling everything first before letting the audience see even a small part of it. And that approach is what is making his scenes feel more personal than performative. Flushed face. Some viewers went as far as saying that watching him now feels different from watching him before, like something about his energy has changed or evolved, and they can't fully explain it, but they can feel it, and that feeling is what is making them go back again and again to watch the same scenes just to understand what exactly is happening. Loudly crying face. Another detail that people noticed today is how he reacts during emotional pauses, because most actors tend to freeze or stay still in those moments, but Maurice keeps the emotion moving even in silence through small shifts in his face, his breathing, his posture, and those tiny details are what are now being called the hidden layer of his acting. Cold face. And then there's the chemistry conversation, because once people started noticing these things, they also began to connect it with his on-screen partnerships, and how his style seems to amplify whoever he is acting with, and that is why many of his pairings feel so believable, because he creates space for real reactions, instead of forcing scripted ones. Astonished face. Some fans are even saying that this is the reason certain scenes feel uncomfortable, in a good way, because it feels too real, like you are watching something private instead of something acted, and that kind of reaction is not something you see every day in Nollywood, which is why this discovery today is hitting so hard. Flushed face. The craziest part of everything is that Maurice Sam himself hasn't said anything about it today, no explanation, no response, nothing, and that silence is making the whole thing even louder, because it fits perfectly with what people are already